Hello, just popping in here to give an update on the maxi skirt. That was one of the projects that I had originally planned to make for QuiltCon, and I did end up making a maxi skirt, but it did not turn out how I was hoping or how I imagined, and it took me a lot longer to work on it than I had allotted in the schedule. So it ended up pushing back a lot of my other projects, and I ran out of time to redo and fix the maxi skirt. But that's totally fine. I have another maxi skirt that I absolutely love that I might be wearing that to QuiltCon instead, or potentially a different outfit, totally fine, no issues. This is the skirt that I ended up self-drafting. It's a little bit of a longer tier on the top and then a shorter tier on the bottom. And it kind of ended up looking like a mermaid tail when it was on, which is nothing wrong with that. Love mermaids. Think that would be a really cute skirt idea. It just wasn't to my preference of how I was picturing the skirt. I'm not sure if I just did maybe the dimensions wrong or used a not ideal fabric, but it's not as flowy as I was hoping it was going to be. And I just ran into a lot of issues while making the skirt, but that's okay because they ended up being learning moments. I got to practice a lot of different sewing techniques. I was able to practice some more pockets, and I feel like I'm getting pretty good at them. So I'm glad about that. And although it felt a little bit like a waste of time at first, I need to remind myself that it is not a waste of time. It is not a failure. It is a learning moment, and it happens. There's going to be projects that we work on that are just not going to be perfect every single time. That would be impossible to have a perfect project every single time. And I know it can get hard to go online and see these people posting projects every single day or a couple times a week, and you're like, you know, I fall guilty of being like, how do they get all that done? How do they do so many projects? How do they all look so amazing? How, like, what? So I just wanted to show a little bit more transparency of how it's not always perfect. There's going to be unfinished projects. There's going to be projects that don't come to fruition or, you know, to plan of what you were hoping. And that's totally normal. And it's nothing to, you know, dwell over. It's just fabric at the end of the day. There's always going to be more fabric. Luckily, this skirt, I might be able to redo it a little bit and make it into a skirt that is more to my preference. It also is basically just a bunch of big rectangles. So this fabric is still very usable. And even if you work on a project and it completely takes up the fabric and there's no salvaging it or saving it or anything like that, you know, and maybe it was your favorite fabric and you're really, really bummed, I totally understand. Just know that even if you can't get more of that fabric, there's always going to be more fabric out there, and you might find a fabric you like even better. You might find your new favorite fabric. I know that happens to me. I'll go to the store, find a fabric I absolutely love. Oh, I just poked myself with the needle. I'll go to the store, I'll find a fabric I absolutely love. I'll be so nervous to make anything out of it because I don't want to ruin it. And so then it sits and sits and sits and sits and sits in my fabric storage. And then one day I'm at the store and I find a fabric I like even more. And then the old fabric, I'm kind of like, oh, like I still like it, but I don't know why I didn't just make something out of it at the time, because now I found this other fabric I like even more and I want to use that fabric now, you know? And I do my best not to let any fabric, you know, go to waste, but just know that there's always going to be more fabric. There's always going to be lessons to be learned. There's always going to be new things to try. And I think that's the beauty of crafting and sewing and being creative and hobbies and stuff. It's just a playground. It's like an adult playground to like mess around, play with, see what works, see what you like, see what just any of that. I hope this isn't getting too like sappy or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of talk through and share this experience because it's always been something I struggled with. When something doesn't turn out how I hoped, my brain like will automatically go to, oh, it was a failure. And I'm trying to change that narrative. I'm trying to change that thought process. Instead say, no, it's not a failure. It's a learning moment, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. You can usually look back and pick something out that you learned from it. And it wasn't a waste of time because I was sewing. And in my head, you can never be wasting time when you're sewing. That should be, I don't know if I've seen I'm sure that's someone else's quote, but if not, we got to put that on a t-shirt. You're never wasting time when you're sewing, or you're never wasting time in front of a sewing machine. Something cute like that. I think that'd be fun. Anyways, thank you for listening to this little ramble. I appreciate you sticking it out and being here, and I will see you in the next project. Happy crafting.